JJK just revealed that Yuta Okotsu will be featured on the cover of Volume 28, and I just gotta say that this is gorgeous. I love it, and I'm so glad he's getting his own spotlight on this cover. And yeah, I know he was on the cover of Volume 0, but that was the prequel, not really the main continuation, and the art style has changed so much since then that I love that he's getting his shine here. But actually, that's not the point of this video. I'm actually going to be answering some more of y'all's questions, so spoilers beware. All right, so first up today, we've got this from Triple Saka, who says, I've been seeing a lot of talk around the community referring to Nobara's comeback as a Deus Ex Machina. Would you mind speaking to this? And yeah, sure. So I personally don't view it as a Deus Ex Machina, but I don't fault anybody that does, because I mean, again, reading a story like this is a subjective experience. And so if somebody is going to be upset at a plot point, there's really no like logically talking them out of it, because that's their experience. But I would say a Deus Ex Machina is more something that's just completely out of left field that hasn't had any explanation or foreshadowing that's built up to it. And in Nobara's case, I mean, there's a whole lot of evidence, which is why we've had Nobara truthers and copers for literally years, right? The ambiguity of her death, the fact that Gojo hid the 20th finger, and that was a plot point that needed to become relevant again, in which Nobara's comeback made it relevant, right? So I don't view it like that, but I'm sure some people, are calling it Disney Kaisen, and, more power to them. But no, I think a Deus Ex Machina is more, akin to something like the owls in Lord of the Rings. And I know that's a whole debate, and you know what? I actually see the reasoning where the owls aren't one, but just something that's more just completely out of left field. It would have been more like if Goku showed up and hit the resonance on Sukuna's 20th finger. Like, that would have been a Deus Ex Machina, in my opinion. Next up, we got this one from Fugly Gang, an incredible name, but y'all pause to read it. But it's essentially about asking for my take on Yuji as a main character, because Fugly isn't the biggest fan. He seems at best to be a monumentally important side character, but a lackluster MC. And he feels this way primarily because he has no feats that are unique to him and earned by him, citing the fact that, he only has a curse technique thanks to Sukuna and the Curse Womb Death paintings. He only knows RCT because he body swapped, etc., etc. And you can't see it in this screenshot, but Fugly ends by saying, "Make me like Yuji, please." And just off rip, I'm not going to be able to do that, because again, this is a subjective thing, and if you dislike those things, that's entirely fine, right? Maybe Yuji is not your slice of MC, and again, I think that's totally okay, because I can't really push back against these things. They're just simply true. And I would say it even goes beyond this, right? Not only did he kind of get granted a powerful curse technique, get to learn RCT thanks to being in somebody else's body, but you even mentioned how he just kind of gets black flashes very quickly. But that's not even on him, right? That's because his body is soaked in special grade jujutsu thanks to Sukuna. Like, that is why Yuji has had such a steep learning curve and has been, so good and grown so much as a sorcerer. It's because of Sukuna, not really because of him, right? Now, clearly he has a strong work ethic and all that stuff. I'm not trying to take that away from him, but I think this is largely a part of Yuji's character that Gege intentionally ingrained, that he was given all of these things. It wasn't about a training arc in the hyperbolic time chamber or anything. So from a power scaling or increasing your strength type of battle manga arc, Yuji doesn't really earn those himself, not in the same way like a different traditional MC might. But I don't think that's the point of Yuji. I think the larger point is his character growth and his trajectory on that scale, and largely how we are seeing him currently defeat the main villain, both literally but also ideologically, because he is working together with everyone, right? And I won't go into my full spiel here because I've talked about it in multiple videos. I'm sure you guys are tired of it, but the fact that they are two sides of the same coin, right? The one to teach you about love is. So I just think that on the scale that you're grading Yuji on, he isn't gonna do well, right? But I enjoy Yuji because I don't really care about the power scaling aspects of it, and I'm more interested in the internal character growth side of things. So again, I think it's fine if you dislike Yuji for those reasons. That's just not what I like him for, if that makes sense. Next up, Slushy Shrew, another incredible name, says, what do you think the chances are Sukuna uses the merger in some way to heal himself and thus his output and then destroys everyone? And I don't think that's very likely. I would love to see the merger in some form or fashion, or at least Sukuna tried to initiate it and then maybe they stop him or something. But with only 4 chapters remaining, I don't really see anything like this happening unless the end of the story is like a literal cliffhanger and we are leading into a sequel or something like that. But for now, I don't really see that happening either, but who knows? Maybe we will. I do think we could see like a final kind of like gambit from Sukuna, even the merger perhaps, but I don't think it would just act as like a 100%, cure all, and then he just takes over. But we'll have to see. Next up, Draco says, I think all of the Gojo missing one eye symbolism might actually be a misdirect and could lead to Yuta sacrificing one of the eyes in order to either survive or to get back to his own body. It could even be something that Gojo himself does for Yuta's benefit. And I actually really like this idea. I'm not saying that I'm shipping this 100%, this is what's going to happen, but that's an angle I've never thought about. Like, what if all of that Gojo symbolism was true? It just wasn't Gojo that did it. It was Yuta that did it. So really cool idea. Next up, we got a few questions from Mesh here. The first being, Yuta ate Yuji's finger to copy Shrine. So why does his version look like Sukuna's and not Yuji's? This is a good question. I've seen a lot of people talk about this. For my money, it's because Yuta copied from Yuji, correct. But at that point, Yuji had never used it or manifested it, right? So Yuta's understanding of the technique was via Sukuna. So we know that everyone kind of interprets the techniques as they do. There may be some nuance with Yuta's copy, but for the most part, we've seen him use the techniques as he understands them from the people he copied them from. And again, since Yuji had never used it, Yuta didn't even know that that was an option, right? So in his mind, Sukuna was the only blueprint he had. So I think that's why. Number 2, after 267, is the soul dismantle Yuji's domain's sure hit effect. Doesn't that make it really conditional and not that useful on anyone who's not an incarnated sorcerer? And I would say yes, I think the domain is the soul dismantle. I think it is just cleave and dismantle, but because Yuji can attack the soul, it's a soul dismantle as well. I don't think he has to use it on the soul, but also you don't need to be an incarnated sorcerer to take damage from it. Yes, he's specifically using it in this instance to separate Megumi and Sukuna's soul, but if there wasn't an incarnated sorcerer and it was just a normal person's soul, he could just tear them up like, imagine like the soul split katana kind of. Like, it's still going to be good to do soul damage even if you don't have 2 souls in you. Then the third question says, no way for you to know this, but do you think we'll get Yuji's domain expansion's name? And I hope so. I mean, maybe Gege would pull that where it's like, let the fans decide, but I hope we get the name before it's all said and done. And I don't really have a good idea for what it could be, to be honest. I know a lot of people think Benevolent Shrine, which I would be fine with that if so, but I almost hope it's something else just because Benevolent Shrine has been like memed upon so much. And then finally, if Yuta can get a handle on Kenjaku's technique, do you think he can jump back into his own body? Yes, absolutely. I at least think it's possible for the body swap technique to re-swap back into its original body. So whether Yuta can figure that out or not, or gets the opportunity or not, is another question, but I do think it's possible. Next up, Poe gives his prediction on the ending of JJK in the one will die scenario, saying that will be Gojo and the 3 students will get to live. And I've put out a couple videos sharing my thoughts on this, but I do think that is one of the higher chances of endings. Next up, Mike says, no question, just supporting one of my favorite JJK creators. Can't believe we're heading toward the end. And Mike, thank you so much, man. It's still really like surreal for me to hear that I'm anyone's favorite creator. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me, but just thank you. Next up, I got 2 identical comments from Moody that just say thanks, and I think that's like the default form when you do a YouTube super thanks like this, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't a mistake. I don't have the ability to refund on YouTube, but if you did have a question, please respond to these and let me know, and we can get that handled. Next up, Xblade says, have you noticed opening 4 and ending 4 of JJK are reflections of Sukuna and Yuji? And no, I did not. I love that interpretation. That just never crossed my mind. He's referring to You Are My Special, and I don't know the name of the other song, but where Megumi, Nobara, and Yuji are walking around taking photos. I didn't even think about how that's reflections of their characters, so I love that. Next, Hati poses this interesting idea of what if Sukuna misinterpreted what happened to him and his twin brother in the womb. And instead of it being like this malicious thing where Sukuna consumed his brother, instead it was the brother willingly sacrificing themselves so that Sukuna could live. So that his entire basis and foundation for his character and ideals was wrong and completely the opposite, right? And I think this would be really cool. I just don't know how much agency a fetus in the womb would have to be able to enable that type of realization for Sukuna, but it's certainly a really cool idea that would, turn Sukuna completely on his head. Next up, Moldy Bread says, what do you think the future of this series is as a whole? Any sequels and or prequels? And honestly, how I'm feeling right now is that I feel like Gege wants to move on from this. And so I don't expect there to be any sequel, prequel, or spin-off announcement, at least not in the immediate future. Now, I could see, at some point Gege deciding after a break that, you know what, I do want to go back to that. Again, especially if the paychecks aren't hitting like they used to. JJK is insanely popular. So the fact that he would be willing to walk away from that is crazy, right? But anyways, so as of right now, I don't feel like we're going to get a prequel or sequel, but maybe in time. And again, what the hell do I know? We could get a sequel announcement next week, and I would be incredibly hype if we did. But right now, I feel like the chances of that are slim. But for no real reason other than just like feeling the pulse of how Gege has like talked randomly about things in interviews. See, it seems to me like he wants to like try something else. Next up, Moldy says, on the Toji versus Todo debate, could Boogie Woogie target somebody without cursed energy? And that matchup is one I talked about in my previous video. So to answer your question, no, Boogie Woogie can't swap something without cursed energy. He needs a cursed energy signature to like target, if you will. But we've seen you can imbue cursed energy into objects and then he can swap them. That's how he did it with like rocks and stuff. So Toji, he would not be able to swap, but he would be able to swap the cursed tools and stuff that Toji was wielding. Next up, Mr. Optimistic Prime says, what if Gojo isn't really dead, but he's purposefully stopping himself from healing so Yuta can access his curse techniques? And I love that your name is Mr. Optimistic because I think that's what this is. I'm a big proponent of Gojo having avenues to come back, but I definitely don't think that he's like intentionally not healing himself because of the whole Yuta situation. I do think he quote unquote died in that moment, but I just think he has some ways of potentially coming back, even if for just a brief moment. And then finally for this video, we got this from Enon who says, after JJK, please consider Bleach or Chainsaw Man. And y'all can pause to read the reasons why Enon thinks that I would like those. And I gotta first of all say that I do like Bleach. I've watched a lot of Bleach. I've never read the manga, but I watched a ton of the anime when I was younger. I still have like a whole lot that I never saw though. I would say that like maybe I made it like a third through Bleach. And again, I enjoyed it. It is on my list. I would say it's like around the middle of my list for things to get into. And as far as covering it, I'm sure I would have a hell of a time piecing things together if that's the type of story it is. But since Bleach is quote unquote done, I think, and maybe I'm wrong there, I'm less inclined to dive into it and make content on it because I don't know if like the demand is going to be there in the same way. So that's the only reason it's not like higher up on my priority list. And then Chainsaw Man, I mentioned this in a previous video. I've heard great things. I just have never really seen anything about it. So that is also on my list, not near the top, maybe also toward the middle, but probably higher than Bleach since it is a current ongoing thing. But largely I am trying to figure out what you guys want to see in terms of like the things we'll majorly cover after JJK ends. So yeah, the more people that like say that they want to see that stuff, the more likely I am to actually dive in. So thank you so much for the support and the suggestions. Anyways, y'all, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for the support. Like, it literally blew me away when I refreshed earlier because I just put out a 20-minute question video earlier today where I knocked out all the questions. And then here, a couple hours later, I already have like a dozen more. So you guys are crazy. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching.